His hand traced slow circles on her bare shoulder. She didn't move. Didn't want to. The silk sheets were cool against her skin, but his touch was warm, dangerously warm. The kind of warmth that made her forget she wasn't supposed to be here. That she was just a maid. That men like him didn't touch women like her unless they wanted something temporary. But this didn't feel temporary. Stay, he whispered against her neck. She closed her eyes. That word again. He always said it like a command disguised as a request. Like he knew she would obey even when every instinct told her to run. His fingers moved lower, tracing the curve of her spine with careful attention. She shivered despite the warmth of the room. Despite the heat still radiating between them from what they'd just done. You're thinking too much, he murmured. She smiled slightly. Someone has to. Not here. His arm tightened around her waist, pulling her closer. Not with me. Not with me. Those words wrapped around her heart like a promise she wanted to believe. But as her hand rested against his chest, her fingers brushed something unexpected. His wrist. She frowned, her eyes opening as she glanced down. A scar. Thin. Pale. Running along the inside of his wrist like a faded memory. Her breath caught. Wait. She'd been with him 3 times now. 3 nights that blurred together in stolen moments and whispered promises. 3 nights where she'd memorized every inch of his body in the darkness. But she'd never seen that scar. Her heart started racing as the realization crept in, cold and sharp and impossible to ignore. Hey. His voice broke through her thoughts. What's wrong? She looked up at his face. The same face she'd kissed an hour ago. The same dark eyes that watched her like she was the only thing in the world that mattered. But that scar. Nothing, she lied, her voice barely steady. The door opened. Her entire body went rigid. The man beside her, the one whose name she still didn't know, didn't flinch. He just pulled the sheet higher over her exposed skin, his hand possessive on her hip. Protective. You're in my room. The voice came from the doorway. Cold. Controlled. Identical. No. No, no, no. She turned her head slowly, her breath caught somewhere between her lungs and her throat. The same face. The same sharp jawline. The same dark eyes. The same dangerous presence that had pulled her into this bed an hour ago. Except, he was standing in the doorway. And the man beside her, the one still holding her, was still here. Her mind scrambled for an explanation. A twin. Of course. She'd heard the rumors. The feared Korean mafia twins who ran this house like an empire. She'd just never seen them together. Never realized. Oh God. What? Her voice came out broken, barely a whisper. What's happening? Neither brother answered. They just stared at each other across the room, silent, lethal, waiting. The man in the doorway stepped inside and closed the door behind him with a quiet click that felt like a threat. His eyes moved from his brother to her, slow and deliberate. So this is where you've been. The brother beside her, the one still touching her, didn't move his hand. She's not your concern. She's in my room, the other repeated, his voice dangerously soft. That makes her my concern. Her heart was pounding so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. She tried to sit up, but the man beside her tightened his grip. Don't, he said quietly. Just one word. But it felt like a warning. The brother in the doorway tilted his head slightly, his gaze never leaving hers. Did he tell you his name? She opened her mouth. Closed it. Shook her head. A slow, bitter smile curved his lips. Of course he didn't. Enough. The man beside her finally moved, sitting up but keeping himself between her and his brother. His voice was low and edged with something dangerous. Leave. No. That single word hung in the air like a blade. The brother in the doorway walked closer, slow, controlled, predatory. He stopped at the edge of the bed, looking down at her with an expression she couldn't read. "Let me guess," he said softly. He was gentle. "Careful. Made you feel safe." She couldn't breathe. "He does that." His eyes flicked to his brother, cold and knowing. "It's his specialty." The man beside her stood abruptly, his body tense. "Get out." But the other brother didn't move. He just kept staring at her, his voice dropping lower. "Tell me something." He leaned closer, and she pressed back against the headboard instinctively. "When you were with me last week, did I make you feel safe?" Her blood turned to ice. "Last week? No." She'd been with one man. One. She was sure of it. She'd memorized his touch, his voice, the way he... But the scar. The scar she'd never seen before tonight. Her hand started shaking as the pieces clicked into place with devastating clarity. "You." She looked between them, her voice breaking. "Both of you?" Neither answered. They didn't have to. The man who'd been in bed with her, the one with the scar on his wrist, finally spoke, his voice quiet and edged with something like regret. "I didn't plan this." His brother's smile was cold. Liar. She couldn't move. Couldn't think. Her mind was racing through every touch, every whispered word, every moment she'd thought she was falling for one man. But it was two. Two men with the same face. Two men who'd shared her without her knowing. "I need to leave," she whispered, already moving, pulling the sheet around herself. "No." Both brothers said it at the same time. She froze. The man with the scar stepped closer, his voice softer now. "It's not what you think." "Then what is it?" Her voice cracked. "What is this?" The brother from the doorway smiled, slow and dangerous and devastating. "A complication," he said simply. "For all of us. If you're already hooked by this story, go ahead and hit that like button. Trust me, it only gets more intense from here." 3 weeks earlier. The first time she saw him, she was on her knees scrubbing marble floors. It wasn't glamorous work. It wasn't meant to be. She was one of 12 maids in the massive Seoul estate, a sprawling mansion that belonged to a family no one talked about directly. The kind of family whose name appeared in whispered conversations and fearful glances. Mafia. That's what the other staff called them when the walls felt safe enough. Korean mafia royalty. And she, a black woman from a small town who'd come to Korea chasing dreams that had long since faded, was just another invisible servant keeping their world pristine. That morning, the head housekeeper had been particularly cruel. "You missed a spot." The older woman's voice had been sharp as glass. "Do it again." All of it. She'd bitten back tears and started over, her knees aching against the cold floor. That's when she heard footsteps. Expensive shoes on marble. She kept her head down. Rule number 1, never look the family in the eye. Especially not the sons. The footsteps stopped. She held her breath. "Stand up." The voice was quiet. Almost gentle. But it carried weight, the kind of authority that didn't need volume. She hesitated. "Please," he added. Slowly, she stood, keeping her eyes lowered. "Look at me." Her heart hammered. This was a test. It had to be. Some cruel game to see if she'd break the rules. But something in his voice made her obey. She lifted her gaze. Dark eyes. Sharp features. A face that could have been carved from stone except for the unexpected softness in his expression. He was beautiful in a way that felt dangerous. "What's your name?" he asked. She swallowed. "Amara. Amara." He repeated it carefully, like he was tasting the syllables. "You're new." 3 months, she whispered. He nodded slowly, his gaze never leaving hers. Then he did something that made her breath catch. He took off his coat, expensive, tailored, probably worth more than she made in a year, and draped it over her shoulders. "You're cold," he said simply. She was. The estate was always cold. But no one had ever noticed before. I can't. Keep it. He stepped back. At least until your shift ends. Then he walked away, leaving her standing there in a coat that smelled like expensive cologne and something she couldn't name. Protection, maybe. Or possession. She didn't see him again for 3 days. But she thought about him constantly. About the way he'd looked at her. Like she was a person, not a servant. Like her name mattered. She'd returned the coat, of course. Left it folded neatly outside his door because she didn't dare knock. But the memory of his kindness stayed with her. So when she found herself alone in the estate's library one evening, sent to dust shelves that probably hadn't been touched in years, she didn't expect to see him again. Except she did. He was sitting in one of the leather chairs, a book in his hands, looking somehow both powerful and tired. Amara. He remembered her name. "I'm sorry," she said quickly. "I didn't know anyone was here. I'll come back." Stay. That word again. She froze in the doorway, her heart doing something complicated in her chest. He set the book aside and stood, walking toward her with that same quiet confidence. "Do you like books?" he asked. Yes. I used to read a lot. Before, she stopped herself. Before life got hard. Before she became too tired to dream. He pulled a book from the shelf behind her. "Try this one." She took it carefully. A novel. Something romantic and impossible. "Thank you," she whispered. His hand brushed hers as he let go of the book. Just barely. But the touch sent electricity through her entire body. "You don't have to thank me," he said softly. Then, almost as an afterthought, "You can come here. When you want. No one uses this room." It felt like an invitation to something more than reading. It felt like the beginning of something she shouldn't want. But she did. God help her, she did. 2 weeks passed in stolen moments. Brief conversations in empty hallways. Shared glances that lasted too long. A borrowed book returned with a handwritten note tucked inside. "I thought of you when I read this." She was falling. She knew it. And she knew it was dangerous. But when he appeared at her door one night, late, when the rest of the staff was asleep, she didn't send him away. "I shouldn't be here," he said quietly. "I know. If anyone finds out." "I know." But he stepped inside anyway. And she closed the door behind him. They didn't speak much that night. He touched her like she was something precious. Something breakable. His hands were careful, his kisses soft and questioning. "Tell me to stop," he whispered against her skin. "If you want me to stop." "Don't stop," she breathed. And he didn't. It was sweet and desperate and entirely against every rule she'd been taught since arriving at this house. But it felt right. It felt like something she'd been waiting for without knowing it. When he left before dawn, he pressed his forehead to hers. "This doesn't change anything," he whispered. "In the morning, we go back to being strangers." Her heart broke a little. "I understand." But she didn't. She didn't understand how something that felt this real could be pretend. 3 days later, it happened again. She was carrying linens through the east wing when someone pulled her into an empty room. Her heart leapt. Him. "I couldn't stay away," he said, his voice rough. She smiled, relief flooding through her. "I thought you'd changed your mind." He frowned slightly. "About what?" "About this. Us." Something flickered in his eyes. Confusion, maybe. But then it was gone, replaced by something darker. More intense. "I don't change my mind," he said. And then he kissed her. But it felt different. His touch was more demanding. More possessive. Less careful. She told herself it was just nerves. That he was being cautious before and now he felt more comfortable. But when he traced his fingers along her jawline, something the other version of him had never done, doubt crept in. Small. quiet, easy to ignore. Until it wasn't. This story is about to get even more complicated. If you're invested in Amara's journey, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what happens next. New stories every week. It was the scar that confirmed it. That night, the night the door opened and she saw both of them together, was the night everything clicked into place. Every inconsistency. Every moment where his behavior didn't quite match. Every time she'd felt like she was talking to two different people. Because she was. She'd fallen for both of them. And neither had told her the truth. She stood in that room, wrapped in a sheet, staring at two identical faces. The man with the scar on his wrist, the one who'd been gentle, careful, protective. And the man from the doorway, the one who'd been intense, possessive, commanding. Both watching her. Both wanting her. Both lying to her. "I need to know your names," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "Right now." The man with the scar spoke first. "Miho." The other brother's smile was cold. "Juno." "And which one of you," she asked quietly, "was I with first?" They looked at each other. Then back at her. "Does it matter?" Juno asked. Her hands shook. "Yes. It matters." "Why?" Miho's voice was soft. Almost sad. "Because I need to know who I fell in love with first," she thought. But what she said was, "Because I need to know which one of you I can trust." Juno laughed, short and bitter. "Trust? In this house?" Miho shot him a look. Then turned back to her, his expression careful. "You were with me first," he said quietly. "In the library. I gave you the book." "No." Juno stepped forward. "She was with me first. The coat. Remember? The coat. The book. Two different kindnesses. Two different men." She'd thought they were the same person. Her voice came out barely a whisper. "How long have you both known?" Silence. Heavy and damning. From the beginning, Miho finally admitted. The words hit her like a physical blow. From the beginning. They'd both known. They'd watched her fall. Watched her get confused. Watched her scramble to understand why the man she was falling for kept changing. And they'd said nothing. "Get out," she whispered. Neither moved. "Get out." Her voice broke on the words. Miho stepped forward, his hand reaching for her. "Amara. Don't touch me." Tears were streaming down her face now. "Don't either of you ever touch me again." She expected them to argue. To fight. To refuse. But they didn't. Slowly, reluctantly, they left. The door closed with a quiet click. And she collapsed onto the bed, pulling her knees to her chest, trying to understand how something that had felt so right could be so devastatingly wrong. What would you do in Amara's situation? Comment below. Amara didn't sleep that night. She lay in her small bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment. Every touch. Every whispered word. Trying to separate Miho from Juno in her memories. Trying to understand how she'd been so blind. But the worst part wasn't the deception. The worst part was that even now, even knowing the truth, her heart still raced when she thought about them. Both of them. When dawn finally broke, she dragged herself out of bed and got ready for work. Her eyes were swollen from crying, but she covered it with cold water and determination. She would avoid them. She would forget this ever happened. She would survive this. She had to. Avoiding the twins proved harder than she'd imagined. The estate was massive, but somehow they were everywhere. Miho in the library when she went to return the book. Juno in the hallway when she carried fresh linens. Both of them in the dining room when she served breakfast. They didn't speak to her. Didn't acknowledge her beyond the brief glances that felt like physical touches. But their presence was suffocating. The other staff noticed. "You look tired," one of the older maids said during lunch. "Are you feeling all right?" I'm fine, Amara lied. But she wasn't fine. She was unraveling. 3 days after the confrontation, Miho found her alone in the garden. She'd been pulling weeds, a task usually reserved for the groundskeeper, but she'd volunteered. Anything to stay busy. Anything to keep her hands from shaking. Amara. His voice made her freeze. She didn't turn around. I'm working. I know. He moved closer. She could feel him behind her. I need to explain. There's nothing to explain. Her voice was cold. You lied. Both of you. I didn't lie. His voice was quiet, almost pained. I just didn't tell you the whole truth. She laughed bitterly, still not turning to face him. That's the same thing. No. It's not. He knelt beside her in the dirt, not caring that his expensive suit would get ruined. If I'd told you I had a twin brother, would you have believed me? Would you have trusted me? She finally looked at him. His eyes were sincere, desperate even. I would have had a choice, she said quietly. You took that from me. Something flickered across his face. Guilt, maybe. Or regret. I know, he whispered. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Amara. She wanted to stay angry. Wanted to keep her walls up. But the way he looked at her, like she was the only thing that mattered, made her defenses crack. Why didn't you tell me, she asked, hating how her voice broke. After the first time. After the second. Why keep lying? Miho's jaw tightened. Because I was selfish. Because the thought of sharing you, even with my own brother, made me sick. Because I wanted you to be mine and mine alone. The honesty in his words hit her harder than any lie could have. But I'm not yours, she said softly. I'm not anyone's. His hand reached for hers, stopping just short of touching. You could be. Her heart stuttered. Miho. I know it's complicated, he continued quickly. I know Juno feels the same way I do. I know this is impossible. But I can't just walk away from you. She pulled her hand back, standing up. You're going to have to. Amara. Please. She closed her eyes. Just, leave me alone. Both of you. When she opened her eyes again, he was still kneeling in the dirt, watching her with an expression that looked like heartbreak. But he stood. And he left. And she hated how much it hurt to watch him go. That evening, Juno cornered her in the wine cellar. She'd been sent to retrieve a specific vintage for dinner, a task that required going to the deepest, darkest part of the estate. She should have known he'd follow. You're avoiding me, he said from the shadows. She jumped, nearly dropping the bottle. I'm avoiding both of you. He stepped into the dim light. Where Miho had looked apologetic, Juno looked angry. Not at her. At the situation. My brother came to you today, he said. It wasn't a question. She didn't answer. Juno moved closer, his presence filling the small space. Let me guess. He apologized. Told you he was selfish. Promised you it could work. Her silence confirmed it. His laugh was sharp. Of course he did. That's Miho's specialty. The gentle approach. The emotional manipulation disguised as honesty. And what's your specialty? She shot back, finding her courage. Intimidation? Something flickered in his eyes. Respect, maybe. Honesty, he said simply. Real honesty. Not the pretty version my brother sells. Then be honest. She crossed her arms. Why did you do it? Why pursue me when you knew Miho was already? Because he doesn't deserve you. The words hung between them, sharp and certain. That's not for you to decide, she said quietly. You're right. He stepped closer, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his body. It's for you to decide. But you need all the information first. What information? His eyes locked on hers. Miho thinks he wants you. But what he really wants is to save you. To be your hero. It's what he does. He finds broken things and fixes them. The words stung because there was truth in them. And you? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. What do you want? You. Simple. Direct. Devastating. Not some version of you. Not a project. Just you. Complicated. Messy. Real. Her breath caught. This was worse than Miho's apology. Because this felt true. I can't do this, she whispered. I can't choose between you. Then don't. His hand cupped her face, thumb brushing her cheek. Choose yourself. Walk away from both of us. Is that what you want? His smile was bitter. What I want doesn't matter. What matters is what you need. He dropped his hand and stepped back. But know this, Amara. My brother will let you go if you ask him to. He'll sacrifice his feelings for your happiness. He turned to leave, then paused at the doorway. I won't. Mrs. Choi had worked at the estate for 30 years. She'd seen everything. Which is why, when she pulled Amara aside during evening cleanup, Amara knew it was serious. Come with me, the older woman said quietly. We need to talk. They went to Mrs. Choi's small office, a cluttered space filled with cleaning schedules and inventory lists. Mrs. Choi closed the door. Sit. Amara sat. The housekeeper studied her for a long moment, her expression unreadable. You're involved with them, she finally said. Not a question. Amara's face flushed. I don't know what you... Don't lie to me, child. Mrs. Choi's voice was sharp but not unkind. I've been watching you. And I've been watching them. The way they look at you. The way you've been falling apart this past week. Amara's hands twisted in her lap. It's over. Whatever it was, it's done. Is it? Mrs. Choi leaned forward. Because from where I'm standing, it's just beginning. What do you mean? The older woman sighed heavily. You're not the first, you know. There was another girl. 5 years ago. A maid, like you. Beautiful. Kind. She caught their attention. Amara's blood ran cold. What happened to her? She disappeared. Mrs. Choi's voice was flat. One night she was here. The next morning, gone. No goodbye. No explanation. Just, gone. You think they... No. Mrs. Choi shook her head quickly. They didn't hurt her. But their father did. He sent her away. Paid her off. Made sure she understood that someone like her had no place in this family. The words settled like stones in Amara's stomach. You need to understand something, Mrs. Choi continued. Those boys, they're good men, despite everything. Despite their father, despite this life they were born into. But they're also trapped. Trapped how? By duty. By blood. By a system that doesn't allow them to choose their own path. She paused. And if you get caught between them, if you become a point of contention between brothers in a family like this, you won't survive. Not here. Amara's throat tightened. Are you telling me to leave? I'm telling you to be careful. Mrs. Choi's eyes were sad. I'm telling you that love isn't always enough. Especially not in this house. After that conversation, Amara tried harder to create distance. She requested different shifts. She avoided the areas of the house where the twins spent time. She kept her head down and her heart locked away. For 2 weeks, it worked. Sort of. She still saw them. Still felt their eyes on her during meals. Still found small gifts left at her door, a book from Miho, a rare flower from Juno. She returned everything. But the ache in her chest didn't go away. She missed them. Both of them. Which made her feel weak and stupid and utterly lost. It started with nausea. Subtle at first. Just a queasy feeling in the mornings that she blamed on stress. Then came the fatigue. The dizziness. The way certain smells made her stomach turn. She ignored it for a week. But when she found herself throwing up in the staff bathroom for the third morning in a row, one of the other maids, a kind woman named Sophie, knocked on the stall door. "Amara? Are you okay?" "I'm fine," she lied, wiping her mouth with shaking hands. "Just a stomach bug." Sophie was quiet for a moment. Then, gently, "When was your last period?" The question hit like a punch to the gut. Amara's mind raced back. 6 weeks. No. No, no, no. Her voice came out strangled. "I need to go." She stumbled out of the bathroom, Sophie calling after her, but she didn't stop. She went straight to her room, locked the door, and collapsed on her bed. This couldn't be happening. Not now. Not like this. She bought the pregnancy test in a pharmacy 3 miles from the estate. Wore a hood. Paid in cash. Avoided eye contact with everyone. Back in her room, hands shaking, she took the test. 2 minutes. That's all it took. 2 minutes for her entire life to change. 2 pink lines. Positive. She stared at it until the lines blurred through her tears. Pregnant. She was pregnant. And she had no idea which brother was the father. Amara sat on the floor of her bathroom, test still in her hands, trying to do the math. First time with Miho, 6 weeks ago. First time with Juno, 5 weeks ago. The timeline overlapped too much. There was no way to know. Not without a test. Not without telling them both. Her hands moved to her stomach, still flat, still unchanged. But inside, a life was growing. Half hers. Half, whose? The gentle twin who'd given her books and soft kisses? Or the intense one who'd touched her like she was something he'd been searching for his whole life? A sob broke from her throat. She'd been so stupid. So reckless. And now she was going to pay for it. They all were. Before we move to the final act, pause here and comment. What would you do in Amara's situation? Tell both brothers? Choose one. Run away? Your comments help shape future stories. She couldn't run. She had no money. No family in Korea. Nowhere to go. She couldn't hide it forever. Eventually, they'd all know. Which meant she had to tell them. But how? How do you tell 2 men, 2 brothers, that you're carrying a child that could belong to either of them? Amara spent 3 days agonizing over it. 3 days of morning sickness and terror and spiraling thoughts. On the 4th day, she made a decision. She would tell Miho first. Not because she loved him more. But because she trusted him to react with something other than anger. She needed gentleness right now. She needed someone to tell her it would be okay. Even if it was a lie. She found him in the library. Of course she did. That's where it had all started. He looked up when she entered, surprise and hope flashing across his face. Amara. She closed the door behind her. Her hands were shaking. "I need to talk to you," she said quietly. He stood immediately, concern replacing hope. "Are you all right? You look. I'm pregnant." The words fell between them like stones. Miho went completely still. "What?" "I'm pregnant," she repeated, her voice steadier this time. 6 weeks. Maybe 5. I don't know exactly." His eyes searched hers, and she saw the moment realization hit. "You don't know which one of us?" "No." Her voice broke. "I don't know." The silence stretched long and heavy. Then Miho moved. In 3 strides he was across the room, pulling her into his arms. She hadn't expected that. She'd expected questions. Accusations. Maybe anger. But not this. Not him holding her like she was something precious that might break. "It's okay," he whispered against her hair. It's going to be okay. How? She choked out. How is any of this okay? He pulled back just enough to look at her face, his hands gentle on her shoulders. Because I'll take care of you. Both of you. No matter what. Miho. I mean it. His eyes were fierce now. I don't care if the child is mine or Juno's. You're not doing this alone. The kindness broke something in her. She collapsed against him, sobbing, and he held her through it all. They didn't hear the door open. Didn't notice Juno standing in the doorway until he spoke. What's going on? Amara jerked back from Miho's embrace, her heart racing. Juno's eyes moved between them, sharp and assessing. Amara? His voice was careful. Controlled. What happened? She couldn't speak. Couldn't make her voice work. Miho's hand was still on her back, steadying her. She's pregnant, he said quietly. Juno's entire body went rigid. What? She just told me. The timeline. Miho's voice was steady, but Amara could feel the tension in his body. It could be either of us. For a long moment, Juno didn't move. Didn't speak. Just stared at Amara like he was seeing her for the first time. Then, slowly, he walked into the room and closed the door behind him. How far along? He asked. 6 weeks, Amara whispered. Maybe 5. Juno's jaw clenched. His hands curled into fists at his sides. But when he spoke, his voice was surprisingly gentle. Have you seen a doctor? She shook her head. You need to. He looked at Miho. She needs proper care. Immediately. I know. And we need to figure out. I know. They were talking about her like she wasn't there. Stop, Amara said, her voice cracking. Just, stop. Both brothers looked at her. I don't need you two to figure this out for me, she continued, even though her voice was shaking. I need time to think. To process this. Amara, Miho started. Please. She looked between them, tears streaming down her face. Just give me space. Both of you. For once, they listened. Miho's hand fell from her back. Juno stepped aside. And she walked out of the library, leaving them both standing there in the wreckage of what they'd all created together. That night, Amara lay in bed with her hand on her stomach. A life growing inside her. A child who would be born into chaos. Who would belong to a family torn apart by secrets and desire and impossible choices. She didn't know what to do, didn't know how to fix this. All she knew was that everything had changed. And there was no going back. The stakes just got real. Hit that subscribe button because you do not want to miss the conclusion of this story. The DNA test. The twin war. And a twist you won't see coming. For 3 days, the twins didn't speak to each other. Amara knew because the entire household could feel it. The tension was suffocating. Staff whispered in corners. Meals were served in heavy silence. Even Mrs. Choi looked worried. The brothers who'd been inseparable their entire lives, who'd shared everything, including her, were now on opposite sides of an invisible war. And she was the battlefield. Amara tried to stay invisible. She kept to her duties, avoided common areas, and pretended her world wasn't falling apart. But on the 4th day, everything changed. Mrs. Choi found her in the laundry room. The brothers want to see you, she said quietly. Both of them. In the study. Now. Amara's hands stilled on the sheets she'd been folding. I don't think. It wasn't a request, child. Mrs. Choi's expression was sympathetic but firm. Whatever's happening between you three, it needs to be resolved. Before their father returns. The mention of their father sent ice through Amara's veins. He doesn't know, does he? Mrs. Choi's silence was answer enough. How long do I have? Amara whispered. He returns from Beijing in 5 days. The older woman's hand touched her shoulder briefly. Whatever you're going to do, you need to decide soon. The study was one of the most intimidating rooms in the estate. Dark wood. Expensive art. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the gardens. Miho and Juno were standing on opposite sides of the room when she entered. Neither looked like they'd slept. Amara closed the door behind her and waited. Miho spoke first, his voice gentle. "Thank you for coming." She didn't respond. Juno's eyes were on her, sharp and assessing. "How are you feeling?" "Terrified," she said honestly. "Confused. Trapped." Something flickered across both their faces. "Guilt, maybe." "We've been talking," Miho continued carefully. "About the situation. About what needs to happen." "You mean you've been planning my life without me?" Her voice was sharper than she intended. "No." Juno stepped forward. "We've been trying to figure out how to protect you." "From what?" "From our father." Miho's voice was quiet. "From this family. From the consequences of what we've done." Amara's hand instinctively went to her stomach. "And what have you decided?" The brothers looked at each other. Then Miho spoke. "We want to do a paternity test." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. "A paternity test," she repeated flatly. "It's the only way to know for certain," Juno said. "The only way to move forward." "Move forward to what?" Amara's voice rose. "To you discarding me if the baby isn't yours? To one of you claiming ownership and the other walking away?" "That's not," Miho started. "Then what?" She looked between them, tears burning her eyes. "What happens after you know? What changes?" Silence. Heavy and damning. Because they didn't have an answer. Not one that would make this okay. "I need to think," Amara said quietly. "About all of this." "Amara. Please." She held up a hand. "Just, give me time." She turned to leave, but Juno's voice stopped her. "There's something else you should know." She froze, hand on the doorknob. "Our father," Juno continued, his voice carefully neutral. "He's arranged marriages for both of us. Daughters of other families. Alliances that will strengthen our position." The words hit like a physical blow. "When?" she whispered. 6 months, Miho said softly. "We've been trying to delay it, but nothing's changed." Amara's laugh was bitter. "You're still going to marry them. Play your parts. Continue the family legacy. It's not that simple." "It's exactly that simple." She turned to face them, tears streaming down her face now. "You both knew. From the beginning. You knew this couldn't go anywhere. That I was just, what? A distraction? A rebellion? Something to share before you went back to your real lives?" "No." Miho crossed the room, reaching for her. "You were never just. Don't touch me." She stepped back. "Either of you." The pain in Miho's eyes was devastating. But Juno's expression was different. Angry. Not at her. At the situation. At their father. At the life they were trapped in. "You're right," he said quietly. "We knew. We knew it was selfish. Reckless. Cruel." Amara stared at him. "But we did it anyway," he continued. "Because for the first time in our lives, we wanted something that was ours. Not our father's. Not the family's. Just ours." "I'm not a thing to be owned," she whispered. "No." His eyes locked on hers. "You're not. Which is why what I'm about to say is going to sound insane." Miho tensed. "Juno. I'm not marrying the woman our father chose." Juno's voice was firm, final. "I'm breaking the engagement." The room went silent. "You can't," Miho said. "Father will." "I don't care what father does." Juno turned to his brother. "And you shouldn't either. It's not that simple." "It is exactly that simple." Juno's voice rose. You can keep playing the dutiful son. Keep sacrificing what you want for what's expected. But I'm done. He turned back to Amara. I'm done pretending this doesn't matter. That you don't matter. Amara couldn't breathe. Juno, Miho's voice was tight. Think about what you're saying. I have. His eyes never left Amara's face. For 3 days, I've thought about nothing else. And I've realized something. He stepped closer. I'd rather lose everything, the family, the money, the power, than lose you. Wait, did Juno just risk everything? Drop a comment right now, is this romantic or reckless? And what do you think Miho will do? For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Miho laughed. Soft. Bitter. Broken. Of course, he said quietly. Of course you do this. Juno's jaw clenched. What's that supposed to mean? You always do this. Miho's voice was steady, but Amara could hear the pain underneath. You make the grand gesture. The big sacrifice. You throw everything away and force everyone else to deal with the consequences. That's not. It is. Miho turned to Amara. And you need to understand something before you make any decisions. He took a breath. My brother is willing to burn everything down for you. And that sounds romantic. It sounds like love. Juno went still. But what happens after? Miho continued. After the money's gone? After the family disowns us? After reality sets in and you're struggling to survive with a baby and a man who's never had to work for anything in his life? Miho, Amara started. I'm not trying to be cruel, he said softly. I'm trying to be realistic. Juno's love is passionate. Intense. All-consuming. But mine? His eyes held hers. Mine is steady. Patient. I will protect you. Provide for you. Make sure you and the child, regardless of whose it is, have everything you need. By marrying someone else? Amara's voice cracked. By keeping me as, what? A secret? Miho flinched. I can give you stability, he said quietly. Security. A future where you don't have to worry about money or protection or. But not love, she whispered. I didn't say that. His voice broke slightly. I love you. God help me, I love you so much it terrifies me. But I also love you enough to make sure you survive this. Even if it means I can't have you the way I want. The confession hung in the air, raw and honest. 2 brothers. 2 different kinds of love. Both of them offering her something. Neither of them offering everything. Amara looked between them, her heart breaking. You're both asking me to choose, she said quietly. But you're not offering me the same thing. She turned to Juno. You're offering passion and freedom and risk. You're offering to burn your life down for me. But you can't promise what comes after. Then to Miho. And you're offering security and protection and stability. But you're also offering half a life. Hidden. Secret. Never fully yours. Neither brother spoke. So here's what I'm going to do, Amara continued, her voice steadier now. I'm going to make a choice. But not the one you're expecting. She straightened her shoulders. I'm leaving. What? Both brothers spoke at once. I'm leaving the estate. Leaving this house. Leaving both of you. Amara, no, Miho stepped forward. You can't, Juno said. Where will you go? How will you? I'll figure it out. Her voice was firm. I've survived worse than this. I'll survive this too. But the baby. The baby is mine, she said quietly. And I'll take care of it. Alone if I have to. You don't have to, Miho said desperately. We can. No. She held up a hand. You can't. Because neither of you can give me what I actually need. What's that? Juno asked. A choice that's mine. Her voice broke. Not a sacrifice. Not a compromise. Mine. She turned toward the door. Wait. Miho's voice stopped her. At least let us help. Financially. We can set up an account. Make sure you and the baby are taken care of. Amara's first instinct was to refuse. But she was pregnant. Alone. With no family and barely any savings. Pride wouldn't feed a child. Fine, she said quietly. But I don't want to see either of you. I don't want updates or check-ins or visits. Just, let me go. 3 days later, Amara packed her few belongings into a single suitcase. Mrs. Choi helped her, silent tears streaming down the older woman's face. You're brave, she whispered. Braver than I ever was. Amara didn't feel brave. She felt terrified. But she also felt free. For the first time since arriving at this house, she was making a choice that was entirely hers. The car that would take her to a small apartment across the city, paid for by the twins, though she tried not to think about that, was waiting. She took one last look at the estate. At the library where it had all begun. At the garden where Miho had apologized. At the wine cellar where Juno had warned her. Then she got in the car and didn't look back. 4 months later. Amara's life had become quiet. Simple. She worked remotely, freelance translation work that let her stay home as her pregnancy progressed. The apartment was small but comfortable. The money the twins had provided sat mostly untouched in an account, used only for necessities and medical bills. She'd made friends with her neighbor, an elderly Korean woman who brought her soup and didn't ask questions. She attended prenatal appointments alone. Built furniture alone. Prepared for motherhood alone. It was lonely. But it was hers. And slowly, she was learning to be okay with that. The letter arrived on a Tuesday morning. Expensive stationery. No return address. Her hands shook as she opened it. Inside was a single page, handwritten in elegant script. Amara. I know you said you didn't want contact. I'm respecting that wish by not appearing in person. But there's something you need to know. We did the DNA test. Her breath caught. 2 weeks after you left, Juno and I went to the hospital. We gave blood samples. We needed to know. Her hands were shaking now. The results came back yesterday. A pause in the writing, like he'd hesitated. The baby is mine. Tears blurred the words. But that's not why I'm writing. I'm writing because Juno and I have spent the last 4 months talking. Really talking. About you. About us. About what we did and what we should have done. And we've realized something. It doesn't matter whose DNA the baby carries. What matters is that we both love you. We both want to be there. For you and for the child. Juno has broken his engagement. I'm breaking mine. We've left the estate. Left our father. Left everything. We're not asking you to choose between us anymore. We're not asking you to sacrifice or compromise. We're asking if there's any chance, any possibility, that you might let us try to do this together. All 3 of us. I know it sounds impossible. Unconventional. Maybe even crazy. But so was everything else about us. You don't have to answer now. Or ever, if you don't want to. But know that we're here. Both of us. Waiting. Hoping. Yours. Miho. P.S. Juno wants you to know he's learned to cook. Badly. But he's trying. P.P.S. I want you to know I still have the book I gave you. The one you never returned. I read it every night and think of you. Amara read the letter 3 times. Then she folded it carefully and set it on her small kitchen table. She made tea. Sat in the window. Watched the city move below her. Her hand rested on her swollen belly, feeling the baby kick. Miho's baby. But also hers. And maybe, possibly, Juno's too. Not by blood, but by choice. The idea was insane. Unconventional. Absolutely impossible by any normal standard. But then again, nothing about this had ever been normal. She picked up her phone. Stared at it for a long moment. Then she started typing. I have conditions. The response came within seconds. Anything. She smiled despite herself. First condition, no secrets. Ever. Done. Second condition, we do this as equals. No one makes decisions about my life or my child's life without me. Agreed. Third condition, you have to prove to me that this can work. That you're both willing to put aside your rivalry. Your egos. Your need to compete. A longer pause this time. Then. We're already working on that. Juno's in therapy. I'm in therapy. We're in therapy together. It's messy. But we're trying. Amara's throat tightened. Fourth condition, if this doesn't work, if it falls apart or becomes toxic or hurts more than it helps, I walk away. And you let me. That's fair. She took a breath. Last condition, you have to let me decide the pace. When I'm ready to see you. When I'm ready to trust you. When I'm ready to try. We'll wait as long as it takes. Amara closed her eyes. This was crazy. This was impossible. This was. Maybe. Just maybe. Exactly what she'd been searching for all along. Not perfection. Not a fairy tale. But something real. Something honest. Something that belonged to all three of them. She typed one more message. There's a cafe 2 blocks from my apartment. Tomorrow. 2 p.m. Both of you. The response was immediate. We'll be there. 6 months later. The baby's name was Hope. Because that's what she represented. Hope that broken things could be mended. Hope that unconventional families could work. Hope that love, real love, could survive anything. Amara sat on the couch in their new apartment, bigger than her old one, but not ostentatious. Earned with their combined work, not inherited wealth. Miho was in the kitchen, attempting to make dinner while Juno gave unhelpful commentary. They argued about everything. Cooking. Cleaning. Whose turn it was to change diapers. But they also laughed. They also supported each other. They also loved her, and Hope, with a fierceness that sometimes took her breath away. It wasn't perfect. Some days were hard. Some days the old jealousies flared up. Some days Amara questioned whether this could really work long term. But other days? Other days were magic. Like now, watching Miho and Juno fight over whether garlic belonged in pasta sauce while Hope slept peacefully in her bassinet. You're both wrong, Amara called out. The garlic goes in after the onions. Both brothers turned to her. Then to each other. Then they burst out laughing. And in that moment, Amara knew. This wasn't a fairy tale. It wasn't a traditional happy ending. But it was theirs. Complicated. Messy. Unconventional. And absolutely, perfectly, theirs. And that's Amara's story. But this is just the beginning of the Afro-Korea stories on this channel. If you love this journey, smash that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Drop a like if this story had you emotional. And comment below what story you want to hear next. More mafia romance? CEO love stories? Enemies to lovers? Your comments shape what I create next. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.